You know what? I should start preparing this early like I used to.
A few moments later.
走れソリよ
So, if this is the first time you watch video for this channel, welcome. I normally cover tier list video, first impression of the decks, and some other random topic that I like to cover. And this tier list video is based strictly on these 3 rules. First, no collab nation. I try to minimize it as much as possible because not a lot of people actually use it incessantly, and based on the result, not many collab deck is actually being added. But if there is a significant ranking in the tier list, I will actually mention it in this video. Secondly, limited entry in the top tier. This is just to split between what are considered to be a great deck and a good deck. So if you're looking for a truly meta deck in general, top 2 tiers should be a good reference point for you. And last but not least, this is purely based on my opinion. I playtest almost every deck on my stream every Thursday, so my opinion will be heavily based on that and some other experience that I gained during the tournaments that I went to or through discussing it with my friends. And I have to push this video out a little bit earlier because of the fact that we are pretty much toe-to-toe with in terms of booster, so I apologize if this third point might not hold relevant as much. And without further ado, let's get into the tier list for DZBT11 and Touken Ranbu set.
And also the new lyrical set.
And speaking of that set, there is a few entry I want to talk about. The very first one is Muneshika. For those who are unaware, Muneshika was actually quite relevant for a few boosters back in the second boost of Touken Ranbu, purely because of the deck ability to not only get aggro very quickly due to Muneshika ability to get its own crit on top of being able to withstand 2 rear guards. However, the deck do lost relevancy after a while, purely because of the fact that not only the power level goes up, but so does the draw quantity for each of the meta decks, and the fact that Shinken Hisatsu is a very somewhat slow mechanic. That's why Muneshika doesn't see a lot of play for a good long while. But things changed since he got his grade 4, as not only you are paying less cost actual restand, a lot of his new card rely less on Shinken Hisatsu, which allow the deck to aggro a lot better while also still having pretty solid hand size. And not forget, Touken Ranbu decks have flush, which allow them to spirit call a rear guard every single turn. So is the deck actually viable? I do think so. But is it a top tier deck? I don't think so. Purely because of the fact that there are just much better entry in the top of the deck, but it is strong enough for me to consider it to be one of the more powerful deck in the format due to a few of his topping in Japan in general. Another Touken Ranbu deck I want to put it into the tier list is, surprisingly enough, the weakest out of all of the Touken Ranbu deck back in its second boost, and that is Kasen. Kasen definitely have come the wrong way because the original was okay but extremely slow. But now with the new version of Kasen, which played like a very nostalgia playstyle, Desami, it fixed every issue that Desami had and make it go beyond. Kasen himself became a juggernaut of a unit based on the power he actually gaining, so goes towards like a success style where not only he buffing all his unit in the front row but also getting additional crit and also infamous guard restrict that he is known for. And this is on top of his event order, essentially restand the rear guards, and he can also gain a lot more draw power thanks to the existence of Touken Ranbu own Gun Cycler and also Persona Shield as well, if that's what I remember correctly. Because of that, Kasen surprisingly see a topping in a few WGPs, as that guard restrict and ability to get a huge amount of power onto the Vanguard all at once does really help the deck a lot. And
do we have to talk about the flush again?
Otherwise, I'm gonna put Kasen in the viable tier as well. It's definitely a deck that you shouldn't underestimate if you see it, because the moment you let your opponent have their board, it will just explode out of the way. And other than that, I'm not seeing much from Touken at the moment. There might be other deck that I forgot to mention. Do leave down in the comments below. But finally, we can move it back into the main part of this video, and that is DZBT11 tier ranking, starting off with Dragon Empire. And you know what? For once, I would consider this support actually cooked, but not in a way that like we should pay extra attention to it. It's just good support, no argument needed. As we can start off with the deck that takes the biggest chunk of the supports, Jiva. And I already kind of mentioned this in a few videos already. Us and Trickstar are an insane insanely good card in Jiwa standard because for one, you have a card that allows you to mill any talisman, allowing you to not only allowing that card to be played in other deck that has a talisman, but also able to reduce the pieces that the deck needed by a whole lot, as some of these cards only need 1 or 2 copy of, and you have a quick access to it thanks to us. And then Trickstar UND make use of the original race, a mechanic that I wish they could do more with it, and finally they does, and they did it very decently well with ability to have a quick small guard without wasting your hand. And you know what's disgusting about all this support? It somehow make decks like the original Nirvana kind of scary because Esperaria 40k guard is actually quite disgusting. But unfortunately, due to the way the meta in DZBT11 seems to be developing, I cannot rate Jiwa higher than top of viable tier. I might move it to meta, but let's see how it goes. Because of the fact that the deck that is the most prevalent in DZBT11 format also get a really huge boost that does hurt Jiwa quite a lot, and I would say compared to these base entry that get a huge boost in their power, I do feel Jiwa feels like a appetizer toward those decks in general, which is something I don't have to be too worried about when it comes to the only other deck that did get a triple R, and that is Verbal Dragon.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
Verbal Dragon gets Sadik, who has ability to not only filter your deck but also has ability to recover your verbal cost, allowing the deck to actually fix some of the deck issue that I mentioned in the past, where the deck doesn't have enough identity to actually make it stand out, and also of course the Persona Soul Blast issue. The only issue with this card in my opinion though is the fact that I feel, at least in terms of what Verbal needs, they're definitely gonna need a lot more than that to actually make it work. But the fact that now the deck has a lot more consistency in terms of looping its own resource is a good thing, but it is not enough for the deck to go beyond the tier that I put it previously, and that was B tier. The deck definitely gets stronger, but I feel we need more than just that to actually fix what Verbal has. And considering how much they normally don't really fix the issue with the Dear Days deck until the new form, I doubt that the deck will get it that quickly. And then the rest are mostly double R, so I will try to keep it as short as possible. Waka gets essentially a combined rusher without the need of order. That does help you to build the board so lesser hand is wasted, but it is not actually improving Waka in any way. But due to the fact that Dino Face exists now, Waka actually sees a lot more consistency and actually a better play in the meta due to a very strong emphasis on intercepting in the recent time. And because of exactly that, I actually did push Waka from the lower A to A+, and I do still think the deck still deserves that positioning right there. In fact, I'm willing to leave it higher just purely because his retire based nature became actually relevant again. So for those who is a huge fan of Nao, congrats. And not only that, you guys confirm getting a mid-dish for sure, cause if I remember correctly, she did get one, it's just not revealed yet. And last deck I will have to talk about for Dragon Empire is Vanguard. Vanguard, I already said in my previous tier list, is a decent deck because of all of the generic kind of make it actually work. So the fact that the deck get a card that actually conjunction well with the playstyle that the deck has is Shape Kiss. Rukaira has two abilities, one of which allow you to hit for a better number before retiring it off to actually give you a free draw, and that free draw cost can be negated if it was specifically called by the Vanguard effect. This is a great improvement for the deck. Does it bring the deck to the next level? Not yet, but the fact that finally the deck has something to actually play around with its own playstyle is a plus in general, and because of that, I'm not changing its positioning in the tier because I already leave it quite high in the alright tier. But if you're looking for a very budget core, better get it now because Vanguard with a generics will give you a very solid result. That's all I would say. That card restrict is annoying as hell, and we all know it. And that is all for Dragon Empire, and I'm not gonna lie, the future doesn't look bright for Dark State. I know it's a nation that is all about the darkness of it, but holy fuck, I already feel depressed from the last booster with Magnus. They make me even more depressed in this booster, at least in the triple R department, because Lavina Jada, the new card that came for Dragon World, is an alright card. I mean, it's essentially a rock a good go with extra step that does play into the way the deck works. It allows you to guarantee a grade 3 card in soul as you just simply use it for the right line. And the fact that Lavena Jada is also a demonic Jewel Dragon also does allow Magnus to be a little bit more independent on his own. Now that we essentially bring the total of number of demonic Jewel Dragon you'll be running in the deck up to 8 cards, that is plenty enough for Magnus skill to be a bit more consistent. But unfortunately, Lavena Jada is not enough to overthrow the Ignis engine because that is still one of the best engine that the deck has. But the fact that Lavena Jada worked well for both versions of the deck is still a huge plus for me, but I'm not gonna shift the ranking. Why? I mean, the point of this card is just to make Magnus independent while also make it work with Ignis, and I think the deck does the job right, and that's why I'm leaving Drajavel in A tier. Anyway, let's move on to the deck that's supposed to steal Thunder from Drajavel but failed to do so, the brand new Right Line and the very first actual Time Leap based deck, Glowwind. I know Time Stepping Dragon is also kind of like Time Leap, but Glowwind is the first proper official deck that plays around it, and you know what? It's not that bad. I mean, the deck does have a huge limitation, but if you can get around it, it does have some good points. Like the Colossus give you a very solid draw while also being one of the most important cards in the deck, being able to hit for a really high number even if you're not Persona riding, and in certain playstyle, it kind of works. The problem, in my opinion though, is the fact that Bushiroad already fails to design a proper deck that use some upgrade for something to be viable, while you're making another deck that do exactly that and make it way harder for it to do so. Sure, you do bite a lot more compared to putting a lot more card into soul like Fafnir does, but it's still slow. And if you guys do not trust what I'm saying, just take a look at this formula that I actually researched into. But you can see 2 to 3 turns is a huge commitment. And don't forget, a lot of Vanguard game normally end at turn 5 or 6 unless both player high roll and drag the game on until they deck out, I guess. So yeah, I do think Glowwind has a potential, but right now I am not seeing it, and because of that I'm leaving it into a low B tier. The deck still works, but there is way too much requirement for it to actually pull it off consistently. Interestingly enough though, Dusted does have some of the better double R
in the booster,
and that comes in the form of the support for Odium and my lovely boy Omina Grugio. I'll talk about Odium first because it's a little bit easier. Having a card that can be treated as grade 3 is a huge help because a lot of cards in Odium is a grade 3, so the fact that you have a card that played into Tick Down Dragon is actually a great thing to have. So now you essentially have a lot more target to fetch using Tick Down skill, and I feel now also is a better time for you to actually put back the Vanessa, I think that's the name.
Vassago.
Because running this card became a lot more useful as there is actually more targets in the deck, and the extra shield is nice too. But it doesn't change the rank for Odium because being a beater does improve the deck, but it doesn't really leap the deck forward. So I'm gonna leave Odium to where she was in the previous tier, and that is still in the higher end of viable tier. And last thing I can talk about in this video, Omina Grugio. Initially, I thought of punishing Omina because he ended up not being so good afterward because having a grade 3 in hand is actually a detriment. But thanks to the brand new card, things changed a little bit because this new card not only allow you to filter more cards but also help you to call cards from soul. And if you know anything, Omina easily have one of the better filter compared to other dark state deck thanks to cards like Lindell Kia and Omina himself helping you to fetch a lot of cards out even if those cards are essentially bricks. So with the brand new card, help you to filter further, help you to call cards from soul, and also being treated as 2 material for Omina mass skill, it does make the main issue of Omina, and that is building back the board, actually whole lot better. I'm not gonna lie, I did not expect Bushiroad to go this route, but I appreciate they do, and that's why I'm moving him up a little bit within the A- tier itself, and I'm willing to put it higher. That is how much better it does feel. But like I said in the previous tier list, a dark state version of the brand new Dragon Rage will ultimately fix the deck in the easiest way possible. Other than that, there is no other particularly interesting unit to talk about for Dark State, so I'm just gonna jump ahead into Brandt Gate. And oh boy, there is a lot to talk about because in my opinion, one of the strongest support has come for a deck that is there for years, bonking everyone and put all their cards into a prison. And that is obviously Prison. Prison have received new version of Syrup as well as a few more cards that help you to search and also Prison in a more free way. And I'll be honest, those extra cards does help, but it's a Syrup that really clear off the way for the deck, because now the deck has better soul, draw, and most important of all, ability to pretty much prevent one certain nation from completely taking advantage of the Prison ability. Of course, locking just on call skill is ultimately not the most powerful thing to do, but let me put it this way, when you give a freedom in activation prevention, it's way too strong. Even with just that, she in my opinion is one of the strongest deck in the format right now. That is how much the deck has improved, and against the current meta where there is a little bit more of intercept action going on top of needing the board to be there for the next turn, decks that has ability to control and can control really well like Syrup became a lot more relevant, which is even more sad when considering the only other deck that did get a triple R in this set, Velstra, kind of failed to follow the new card up. Let me explain. Velstra now got a brand new card that help you to not only just search for a product but also help you to fetch for a blitz card. At a glance, it sounds like a good thing to have. I mean, you are able to get a free Felicta or the counter charger is actually a good thing, and not only that, ability to play product from drop is also very helpful as well. The problem with this card though is in the cost of its skill. As we all know, Freiheit is still insanely powerful in Velstra deck and still a 4-off for 80% of the Velstra build in general. Having another card that fights for the deck resource is not exactly a smart thing to do when the deck is just barely scraped by when it comes to its resource. Though I also not sure that will Velstra getting any other support afterwards that kind of help you to make it actually worth the discard cost. But you know what, for a deck that always have a problem and always have a solution for Bushiroad to tackle and give them a proper support for it, it works, but not as much as they intended. So unfortunately, I'm dropping Velstra down to B tier, top of B tier at least, because he feels right in that spot. But funnily enough, I'm leaving Black in where I left him last time, and that is a viable deck. I mean, Black Velstra as a Vanguard is just a better card compared to the original Velstra, so I feel bad for the deck. Like generally, yes, you cannot search for the persona right with the Black Velstra, but at least you are able to search for other pieces in general. That is enough for Black in general. And then just like other two nations we have done so far, we only have two more decks to talk about, and this time round is an interesting one because we have Hero and Emporio. Again, I'll talk about Emporio first because it feels more interesting, at least in the direction they decided to take Emporio in that regard, because the brand new card Volfront does help the deck to draw early, which is alright. I mean, the cost got waived the moment you have 4 or more automod, which is quite easy to do nowadays. And not only that, you also have additional ability to trigger when it is being put as an automod card, which, you know what, that's an interesting way to update the deck, and it's a more fun way to update it. And being able to buff a unit a little bit more does help, especially we just got the restander for Emporio in the previous booster. But the more interesting one I have in my eye is the other Emporio support, as we have Splash Outstander, a card that is able to return a normal unit that is not Sentinel back to a bottom of your deck. This doesn't do much at a glance, but personally for me, the most important card in the deck are Nebula Invoke and Wegestinder. Being able to recycle those cards that either went into damage or unfortunately has to be discarded in the earlier part of the game does help the deck a lot. The only issue I'm seeing here is just space wise, I guess, because the deck already used quite a few generic to kind of make up for its weakness, and as much as this card has a very good use of it, the use case is not enough for it to actually be run at all. And because of that, I'm still consider Emporio a viable deck. And then we have Hero! And initially I thought there's no good way to fix Hero unless they fix it all the way down to the core of the deck, and that is right line. And they did, because they just give us a brand new way to right line for Hero, and it do so much for the deck because able to search for another base is just a heal plus on its own. And not only that, it also helps you to scout one card early, allowing you to essentially reduce the total number of grade 3 that you run in conjunction with the brand new Hero boss unit by a lot, allowing you to have a little bit more space to run the other utility unit that this deck had, and that is Combinate Nixia, essentially a Hero version of you do something to it to draw 1. That is how good it is. Like the fact that hero now have, in my opinion, one of the most easy to abuse draw engine that I have ever seen. Just do so much for the deck. Yes, the deck's still not the best in the format, but the fact that it feels a lot more comfy to play into the new playstyle is a really good thing. And the interesting part on all this is that it also kind of works well on the older version of the deck as well. So because of all this utility that hero finally have gotten after all this time, I am willing to put hero back from C tier into mid B tier. That small thing that these two cards do just help the deck so much that it became a lot more stable. And you know what? I clap for you, Bushiroad. You have always do some funky shit with this deck, and this time the funk is good. Okay, that come out very weird.
Stop it. Get some help.
Next up, we have the nation that taking an L for once, and that is Keter Sanctuary. And I'm not gonna lie, the disparity in the support is quite prevalent. At least when it comes to legacy support. Like, we have the peak and we have okay. That is how vast the difference is. And you can clearly see the peak with Useberg, because the new support for Useberg, both Belustein and Edwina, are an incredible card. I mean, Belustein is essentially Maple, but better in a sense that it's allow you to hit really hard with the card, guard better with the card, self-call back with the card just like Maple, though you need to Soul Blast one for it, but that's exactly what the deck wants. The deck is lacking in Soul Blast department if you're taking away all the full blast support, so this is a great thing to have. And fix the issue that original rebuild has, and that is the sacrifice of the deck superior call. This card is essentially what Schnitzel actually was, and actually went above and beyond by making his attack better as the time goes, and also have wider surge range, which of this is enough to actually make Useberg a whole lot more consistent in not just fetching his persona right and everything, but also power wise, as this allow Useberg to technically go second without having any consequences. That is how much of an improvement the support does for this deck, and it is safe to say it is currently one of the best decks in the format right now. But of course, if your RNG when it comes to checking isn't good, then not much I can say. But what I can safely say is Draconis once again taking a big L. Especially one of the chatters or commenters mentioned to me that Draconis got converted back to Amorta. Like, I know temporary power boost is a thing, but the fuck, man. Anyway, Lyle did get Celivan, which, contrary to what a lot of people believe, is actually a decent card, as it does help you to play around the stupid cost of EB4 discard 1 for additional drive and buy 1 from drop that Draconis has. As this not only works as a discard target, but it also turns itself into a board when it is binded. So it helps you to increase the efficacy of what you use as a cost. But does that improve the deck? Not really. The deck still have a lot of problems that need to be addressed, namely how most of the attacks are generally very weak and you generally only have one good turn, and most of the support doesn't really mesh with all the cards properly. As much as I did put Draconis in a much higher location in my previous tier list, I have to bring it down to on the low end of viable. I initially thought Draconis was gonna be a meta tier because the possibility of having multiple PGs throughout the game, but I think the result has proven itself. Multiple PG doesn't equate to a much better result, or at least a much more cohesive deck. So I'm sorry for all the Lyle main, both versions technically, we are eating L's again, which is made worse when you consider the Resael support is not bad, but at the same time it makes you question the direction they're trying to bring Resael into. As the deck got two cards that I would say not bad on paper. I mean, you have a 20k rear card that helps you to fetch back Resael the original, allowing you to essentially play with Vita better, or you can kind of loop Persona right with the base Resael. And then you have Soel, you know, the Great Zero that become a great one. I do like the fact that they give us a better counter charger. That is also technically above my mind. But the direction that they decided to go with Soel's skill is a little iffy in a sense that, like, yes, giving additional shield with Soel is actually not bad, and also help you to have more bind option, allowing you to play a more tankier version of Resael better. The problem is that the deck main problem is Soul, and Soul pretty much removed the reason why it became Soul to begin with, which is a little stupid in my opinion. Like, I know they don't really want to do twin cards second skill in a card that often, but I feel like if you want to really make it tanky and make it a lot more efficient, that skill should have been activatable from graveyard. That's just how I feel. So I'm not gonna change the ranking for Rosael as compared to what I did in the last tier list, because let's be real, Rosael is gonna be Agina main deck in the next season as well. So I wouldn't be too worried if you guys wanting the dog to come back, because they might give us a card that exactly fix that. And let's be real, dog is at a good price right now. I don't want it to go any higher than it already is. And then we have the only double R left in the list. Initially, I don't want to talk about this card because it's nothing too crazy, but considering what it replaced, I have to do it, and that's Alden. Alden get a brand new grade 2 that not only help you to surge into a grade 3 after this unit boosted or attack, and itself being a 15k booster, it also move itself to soul to activate that surge skill. This means that this card is pretty much a replacement for that stupid dragon they gave us back in DZBT11. Interesting theme with fixing all the Divine booster in this booster for Keter. The support is not bad. I don't think it's too crazy to shift Alden from where he was previously, but it definitely nice to see that Alden player no longer have to play RNG with the booster anymore, which is a good thing. And we have the collab. Yes, this time around, the collab we are getting is nation specific in the form of Feren Beyond's Journey collab. This does come with 3 different decks, Feren, Fern, and Stark. And I would say as a deck, they are not bad, as much as they require default to pretty much function. So let's start off with Feren, the namesake. Feren, I would say she does have my favorite playstyle out of the 3, in the sense that by the time you reach turn 3, you are at least filtering 6 cards out of your deck, and those are Grimoire cards that can be reactivated when you reach grade 3. That is very good. I mean, the Grimoire, some are useless, but some are just insane. The fact that you can return 1 trigger back, draw 1 card, check top card of your deck, and recycle 1 card from drop every single turn provided you have 4 energy is really good. And she herself is a very solid boss unit aside from that activating skill, because she gives herself additional drive and she gives you more hand size, which is really something that I feel a lot of newer deck is lacking in the recent time. And to top it off, her order is very relevant to the meta right now, considering you can just remove 1 column, countering decks that does have intercepts like Virgila, Haruru, or decks that does have a really strong record column like Prison. So as much as she doesn't really show much on the tournament result, I like her a lot, and I would consider her to be pretty rogue deck. As much as I glaze her quite a lot, her deck does require you to get a head start as soon as possible, particularly with unit like Sign. So if you do not draw Sign in any part of the game or manage to call him using cards like Feren Default or any other way you use to add more cards to hand, the deck definitely feels a lot less scary. And that's why I consider her the rogue tier deck, because the moment you get things goes well for her, she does really well. But the moment you stumble into any part of her game flow, you kind of lose momentum a little bit, especially if you cannot get Star. She's a 3 attack deck. I'm not mad about her being 3 attack deck, but with her game flow, she need at least 1 more attack, which is kind of funny to see because her disciple Fern is actually meta thanks to her ability to interact with her main order, which allow her to essentially just pull Beast Deity attack with the Vanguard with a single drive, allowing you to essentially increase the number of attack while also help to retire a rear guard. And to make things more interesting, Soul Truck is a grade 1 order. This means that if you manage to go second, you get your early aggro thanks to Soul Truck, and you get a little bit of disruption here and there thanks to the very same spell as well. And combining with her ability to superior call cards on her own, this makes her deck a lot more filtery while also having a very good flow of attack overall compared to the other 2 decks. And if you're wondering how useful it is, she was in top 32 in Japan at least a few times. So I think that is enough of a proof to show that this pouting monster is a meta tier deck. I think I have said enough. If you piss off Fern, you're in for the hurt, and I think the deck translates it well, which is interesting if you're considering the last deck that we got for the collab, Stark. I already said in my Feren video what I do think about Stark, but I think I should give a little bit more context from that video. In a sense that yes, Stark do constantly give you 5 attack, and considering you have to run multiple Stark in your deck, the deck will be one of the easiest deck to get into restanding Stark rearguard, which is good. But here's the thing, Stark is plain as fuck. Like everything that he does is so simplistic, and sadly it doesn't really tank as much as some of the people want it to be. So I have to put Stark in alright tier. Like the deck is so vanilla, like the character, so much that I can't really talk about much. Overall, very disappointing, which is to be fair in the character. Moving back to Earth and touch some grass, we are back with Stoicheia, and I'm not gonna lie, I thought the Stoicheia is the most cracked support. Like look at Leonon for example. A few cards that she received are extremely useful, and I thought she would be one of the biggest contender in this meta, but unfortunately not. But I still have to acknowledge how good the new support for Leonon actually are, especially with her brand new form, Leonon Torment. This card essentially just makes the more annoying part of the original Leonon skill completely disappear, and decided to take a Magnus approach. But unlike Magnus, which kind of fucked the whole deck up, Leonon Torment does the opposite because the deck just works with it. I mean, the way Torment utilized Leonon and the deck's ability to revive back cards is really good. And I mean, I can't say no to a very juicy, huge Vanguard power when you manage to go second on turn 3 together with Silverlight. Though I'm fully aware Silverlight is not being used as much right now, partially because of the meta, but Leonon Torment in my opinion just improved the decks a whole lot. And I haven't even considered the second Rosarium Valley that the deck get, allowing the deck to essentially just close the game at a much better consistent. Even if you couldn't get Rosarium out, you still at least have this card to kind of work as a runner-up. Even though she doesn't really have a lot of presence in the top tier meta, I still personally feel she is definitely deserved to be put into the meta tier. In my opinion, she is very similar to Yusberg in the fact that against certain matchup, going a specific order would give her a huge advantage, but because of how the meta shift into a little bit more of a control focused meta again, it kind of hurts Leonon quite a bit, which is kind of sad. Many times Leonon kind of struggle on launch purely because of the fact that the meta just shift towards screwing her up. So I'm gonna leave her there because I still think she is definitely one of the deck with the highest potential, probably after like this wave of support. And the same can kind of be said to one other particular deck, the hentai man himself, Zoga. Zoga, particularly Nadia, God remains man. Is that name intentional? Like seriously, is that name intentional?
Stop it. Get some help.
This card is pretty much a key severing of Soga Nadia, and I'll be honest, it does a lot of good job. I mean, the card gains its own power based on the main thing about Nadia, and that is binding orders, which is really good already. But this unit also self-retire itself to put itself into the drop to essentially help you to fetch back an order from bind zone back to hand. This ensures that you are able to go into Alchemagic every single turn, and this is optional, so it is not the end of the world. But I do have to say, heavy counterblast is definitely painful for Soga, so some build definitely has been looking to put in Healing Man list, which is perfectly legitimate, and I'll be honest, not a bad card to put in at all. But does this make Soga stronger? I don't think so. Soga is still extremely piece reliant due to the way he play in general, and yes, he do have 5 attack divine turn now, but this game closing move also kind of dependent on what do you check for Soga, and whether are you able to line up all the pieces that you need to close the game properly. And because of that, I am gonna bring Soga up a little bit into a viable tier. Being able to recycle order is definitely a plus for the deck, and the additional attack is always a plus, but it's his own playstyle that kind of holding him back to be pushed higher.
Understandable. Have a nice day.
And you guys might be wondering, where is Nana Clear?
No.
I mean, Nana Clear just came out last booster. Where is her support in Triple R area? Well, Nana Clear got a Levidrus treatment, sort of, because both of her new support are double R. And I would say both cards are good in their own way, though it does sabotage the deck a little bit. Like, Belnor is genuinely, for me, a very good card. Ability to get its own crit back is good. Ability to get its own additional power is also very good, especially you can abuse it with that critical. The issue I'm seeing here is just that, why don't give draw for Nana Clear? The Nana Clear already already been kind of tight in terms of draw power to begin with. A bit of draw wouldn't hurt, yeah. And then we have Floras, which seem to be useless at a glance. I mean, a self-caller when your deck already kind of like populate the field quite quickly already, it seems to be useless. But I actually like it for the fact that it gives any one unit 5k. So it does make certain attack that used to be easier to guard a lot more scarier to guard. And a good example for this is the Vanguard. Nanaclear doesn't gain power on her own, so she have to rely on a booster in a way to get a bigger number. This helps her to break that magic number in a more efficient way. And it self-retire at the end of turn, which is generally a good practice. So I think Nanaclear support deserve a huge praise, and I'm willing to shift Nanaclear up from being an alright tier deck into a rogue tier, because Nanaclear is similar to Useberg in a sense that it has to go first. If it doesn't go first and rush the hell out of you, the deck just doesn't perform as well, which is kind of scary to think about it, because if Nanaclear get a Useberg level of support afterward, will the deck be meta? I'm not too sure, but the possibility is there, especially fan loves Ruga, and I'm not sure whether are they bringing Ruga back for season 5 or not. And then last but kinda least, because this is the first time in a while I'm talking about a rare support in this kind of video, and that is for Levidras. Okay, I think the bigger buff for Levidras, in my opinion, is Charmnet back to 4. I think that as a buff kind of leave him maintain viable tier to begin with, but his new support, I generally feel is not a very good card, but it's like a nice technical option to screw over certain decks in the current meta. Like right now, as long as you can do something to your opponent rare card, it helped the deck in a way, because it kind of screw over the tempo of certain decks just enough to make your life a little bit easier, but not enough to shift Levidras from where he was previously, and that is a high viable tier. The deck's good, the support is interesting, you can kind of like put a few copies just to try it out, but don't expect too much from it. And with that, we have two more entries to cover, and that is of course Pias and Lyrical Monasterio. And since I'm making this video to cover the Lyrical booster as well, it feels more deserved to be put at the last, so do wait a little bit longer for those who want to see DZBT11 Lyrical ranking. Anyway, let's move to the PR first, and we can start off with our bi-weekly PR boss unit, since this seems to be something that will be appearing more often now, with Cell Gorgon.
3:28 a.m.
And seriously, what a waste of a good boss unit. Like, Selgogon is generally has a lot of strong utility, ability to search for any card within its own archetype outright when placed on Vanguard Circle, and ability to search for more cards when a specific order is being played. Yes, these are specific, but it is still very powerful. And don't forget, he is an Overlord unit, so that does have a very easy to activate cost. So all these elements is pretty good as a boss unit. The problem here though is the archetype the Bushiroad decided to let him support the deck, the Nymph.
Hey yo, what the f—
You know, the engine that you probably make it if you are 5 years old and your parent is usual Asian parent and not letting you buy this kind of cardboards? Yeah, that kind of archetype. Nymph is not bad per se, like it has its own restand engine, its own searcher, and there are some utility you can use with the Nymph unit that is currently available in the nation itself. The problem here though is that this is considered if the highest tier of the power level is B.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
Yeah, that is how bad and piss poor their power level is in general. There are some interesting combo you can pull it off with, but overall I'll put it this way. Cell Gorgon is in D tier, not by his own fault, but rather his own support fuck him up. Kind of like a reverse of a Bruce situation here. It's feel weird, and it also feel weird that the support that intended to support a brand new Dimension Robo is interesting. You see, the new D Robo activate its own skill while in Soul, which is really good. Like, that's something that I wish more Dimension Robo in it actually do more, and reset the drive to 1, provided you have 2 Vanguard on the field, aka D Legend. And it also has a discard skill that give you a little bit of energy, which is just enough to help you to populate the field a lot easier, while also making use of the discard requirement that units like Director or Kaisat actually demand from you. But the bread and butter of this unit is the Soul skill that I mentioned earlier, that give back a drive. This means that regardless of which attack you go go for, you will at least have a chance to increase the power further, making the attack even harder for the opponent to guard. But here is the problem. Daikaiser is such a problematic unit as a boss unit, at least in this iteration, to an extent that even with one drive, that's not gonna fix the issue anytime soon. It needs to be fixed at the core of the skill. So I'm willing to shift Daikaiser just a little bit from where I put him previously, but I'm not putting him up the tier anytime soon. There's still a lot of problems that need to be solved for him, and by the time I recorded this, DZBT12 just start revealing things slowly, so I'm not sure if we are getting anything good for Daikaiser. The PR that we got for Daikaiser is useful. I don't know the reason why Marlene getting a brand new support to begin with.
Emotional, damn it!
And I'm gonna talk about her DBT11 support also. Both of the cards do something for the deck, but as usual, the fact that the deck do not have enough counter blast, even if the deck did get a counter charge. I'm looking at you, Vrinda. Meanwhile, the new right line is, personally for me, not as good. Like, I'd rather have a cloning skill that allow you to bounce back later on than what essentially we get for this one, which is essentially Superior Call this unit from Soul when you ride a Marlene, gets additional power and help to recycle a Marlene into drop for a draw. This is alright as a rear guard, definitely shitty as a Vanguard. So I'm sorry if you are a Marlene fan, I'm not shifting her anywhere at all. This card does fix Soul issue, but you have a lot more problem with Marlene than you think, and I think if Marlene can get a rework, I would fully go for it, which is something that I think we don't have to talk too much if you're considering arguably one of the best PR from this pack, and that is Judgment Dragon Vanguard, a support for PBO. Essentially a card that helps you to set up the PBO crit if needed to, and also work pretty much the same way as Clote, the one that gives the Bastard ability to drive, but instead of you have to discard one card to trigger the skill, you Energy Blast 3 instead. And this is also a Shadow Paladin unit, so this card technically is a better card than Clote in the sense that it can be searched by units like Dara. It technically is less strain on the hand because you actually Energy Blast 3 to get a drive, and it's a better attacker as well. But ultimately, what this card does for the deck is that now you essentially have 8 cards that enable Blaster to perform drive checks. I think that ultimately is the biggest pluses that you can get from this card, as Keter already have a very easy to access engine to begin with, so this just makes 6 drive PBO even more consistent and freaking scary if it is able to do so. So yeah, the increased inconsistency of this playstyle really make PBO this to be moved into viable tier. Let me put it in this perspective for some of the people who don't understand. One of my pals, Jason the Undisputed, was able to reach 9th place last year with the less consistent version of this playstyle. That should give you enough about what if that playstyle became even more consistent. Of course, it's not like Useberg level or anything, but I do think the fact that you can perform 6 drive in a turn without the help of the Keter over trigger is just
genuinely disgusting.
And then the last entry for the PR, I feel like this can be talked together because we got Rami Rebellion pair, Hari and Night Rose unique strike orders, and both more or less do the same thing, just in the different location. Hari in the soul and Night Rose in the drop. Both of the skills are pretty damn good, I would say. I mean, Night Rose had more ways to essentially just mill cards, which is really good for them, and Hari finally has, I would call, a consistency piece that the deck kind of need for quite some time already, as if there's one thing that Hari is lacking is a proper setup, and this card does help the deck quite a bit. And the fact that you can use this card as a discard cost to reduce the strike cost while still able to use the order as it can be activated from drop actually helps the deck a lot, because this allows the deck to play into order pile as well, allowing the deck to filter just a little bit better, allowing that triple drive to be just teeny bit more insane. So for Hari, I still have to put it in B tier, I'm sorry. The deck definitely have increased consistency, but I feel what the deck needs right now is a strike that is actually scary. Meanwhile, for Night Rose, it is already a viable deck, it just get another 2 box, so I don't think there is a heavy need of changing the ranking. It is still a perfectly usable deck, and one of, if not the most useful deck if you're willing to pilot it. And finally, it is time. We finally can go into the lyrical entries, and oh boy, there's quite a lot to talk about today, so tighten your sphincter Clarissa. And let's start with the one from the DZBT11 first. Starting off with, of course, Chris Rain. I already kind of prefaced it back in my previous tier list about her new form, as that was how long ago she was introduced. But Clarissa, as I already mentioned before, is not bad. I mean, it is a huge improvement over the original. One additional skill is good. You have a lot more flexibility from the Divine Seal as well. The problem here is that why can't this be the original version of it? Because I feel even with this set of skill, it is perfectly still gonna be balanced in that part of the game. But does the deck improve with the new form of Chris Rain? Not really. Especially her recent support is not some of my favorite, purely because you're kind of forced to use an order. So if you cannot get that order out, you're kind of screwed. So as much as a new form helps the deck, other cards kind of weight the deck down enough for me to leave her to where she was. I mean, Chris Rain has always been kind of like, in my opinion, one of the more interesting decks to kind of play around due to her high-ladder nature, but I think as the time goes, the resource management aspect of the deck became a lot more annoying to actually deal with than actually something enjoyable. I'm not against the need of resource management, but when it is so egregious to an extent that it is hard to actually work around, that's a no-no for me at least. Which is something that I would consider an opposite if we consider the next entry in this list, Artisaria. Artisaria received another triple R. Stylish Looper essentially allow you to not only return cards that was in the front row and retire by your token call, but also able to become a 15k booster, essentially making Artisaria number a whole lot consistent. And there is also a benefit of giving one card ability to return to hand that way as well, because if you're considering the last support, this means that you have now a way to consistently filter out the missing sound system, while also has a way to generate more tokens. In a way, that grade 2 with the Stylish Looper combined to create an engine for this deck that makes the token generation just a tiny bit faster. Of course, Stylish became less useful as the game goes on, but the point is that now, in a way, this deck aggro does get faster in a good way. But is it enough to actually bring it to the next level? Not yet. Like, the deck has control, really good control. The deck has a lot more consistency in everything already, but I think the problem is still the fact that she needs time to ramp up. And I know ramp up is not a bad thing, but I feel if you're up against the current meta, she needs at least one turn faster. So if she get that speed up, I think she will at least deserve to be in at least a viable tier. And then last but not least, we have Juicy Fruity, which essentially get a beater that give you additional draw, which is not bad, and also soul as well, so it is not terrible. I wouldn't call it a huge improvement for the deck in any way. It's just another card that helps you to fill up some resource that the deck can miss if you run certain cards. And even with that, most of the Juicy Fruity player that I have seen in the locals still go for the original, so that says a lot about the support. So no change for Juicy Fruity as well. Kind of annoying, isn't it? Like, a lot of support are good, but not good enough to actually make them competitive, which is something I can safely say with the Lyrical booster. Not all of them are bad, but a lot of them don't really get a huge boost, as you can see with some of the deck I'm gonna be covered through today. And we're gonna start quickly with the original 5 of the Lyrical deck: Loronero, Clarissa, Alestia, Vilista, and Filthy Rosa. Starting off with most disappointing one out of the 5, we have the cat Loronero. Loronero did get another song searcher, which is not bad, another song player which allow you to play from drop, which is also very good as well, something that the deck kind of needs, but the deck's still not good at all. And the reason kind of boils down to mainly 2 reasons. The first is it still takes a little while for the deck to actually get up to gear, and secondly, the deck just suffer from the curse of the early dress up syndrome, where you require the original copy of the unit to actually play the game properly. And in the case of Loronero, you cannot play her without the original order searcher, which is also the only way for you to Loronero from hand into soul to trigger that triple drive. So Loronero is essentially a unit that was designed for the time, and even for the time it was poorly designed, and that's why I'm not changing the ranking for Roro, because the support is still shit. Meanwhile, for Clarissa, it's confusing. Like, the deck do get some good support. All of the support are Earth Connect unit. One actually call itself from drop, while also reduce the cost of any Earth Connect skill, which is good. One help to replace itself with one of the unit, which is very helpful. You can loop Ortica, and then you have the last one, which is a cycler.
I don't like where this is going.
Yeah, it is very confusing set of support. Like, I know where they're trying to go with each of those cards, but it is sad to say that some of the base Clarissa support feels very clashing with one another. Like, you can clearly see with the third card I was talking about, they really want you to play the original restander, but the biggest issue with that original restander is that for a card that only just restand itself, you require to discard one card and a counterblast one, and also your Vanguard has to hit. So it's a 3 element that is really awkward to really play, but for some reason Bushido decided to support it, which kind of pissed me off. Like, generally I think Bushido really have to figure out what is the best Earth Connect unit and support it directly properly, or make something like Autica, which essentially help you to recycle the resource better, which is more preferable in decks like Clarissa. But I think the biggest fix you can do to the deck is going with Vilisa treatment, where you have a brand new order. You see, aim to be the strongest idol is a very powerful order. The problem with that card is that it's require your opponent to be grade 3 or greater, and Clarissa as a deck still want to run the original as a starter, which means that your first turn is really awkward. There are some pieces in the puzzle that in the Clarissa deck that is confusing, and I think they have to untangle this first before actually rework on other parts of the deck, and that's why no change for Clarissa as well. And this might sound biased, but trust me, out of the 5, I think Celestial might have gotten the best out of all of them.
Shut up, simp.
Like, this is one of my favorite decks, and for a long time I want the deck to improve, and finally the deck actually get 2 cards that actually improve the performance of the deck by a whole mouse, as the deck not only get a Searcher, which sound bad at a glance, but considering the fact that you can add it to hand is pretty good already, but also a replacement for Elkiel that trigger as you play the game by just writing.
It was perfect. Perfect.
This allow a lot of combo that Celestial wouldn't able to do
Consistently.
before, able to do it right now. Like, for example, start the game with double wing, allowing you to essentially just block off the early game rush and also still ride into grade 2 for free. And not only that, those 2 units are also have additional skill that is really good. The Searcher has ability to pretty much minus 5k to all the cards on the guard zone that your opponent trying to guard with, and the grade 1 also technically work double as a counter charger as well. These 2 elements alone just improve the deck a whole lot, because this allowed the deck to go into the dual wing a lot more consistently, but also filter the deck even better than before. But unfortunately, power is also her biggest downfall, because the number is just not there, man. Even with the power balancing and everything, the modern meta deck can kind of generate the hand to a ridiculous level already. So that's why I'm still willing to bring Celestial up 2 ranks into alright tier, because finally the deck just get a card that is no longer making it a joke anymore. I'm really glad that finally Celestial is relevant, which is something that Vilista does keep up the pace for the original 5, because she did get 2 cards that I would consider to be a pretty solid card in general. One gives you additional drive and also counter charge if needed to, which is kind of insane considering how much she filter, even better than any of the 5 that I mentioned just now. And also another attacker that can get a huge power instantly. Though that card is a little bit slow, but at the state of game, you should be able to close the game with that unit as well. So Vilista, I would say, shouldn't change the ranking in my tier list, just purely because the power level just go up along with her power level. But I have to say, from the deck that is considered to be the worst from launch, she definitely comes a long way, which is something that I would say to one particular deck that is so RNG heavy. They really have to make a card that makes sure that the combo is looped properly, and that is Felty Rosa. Felty Rosa essentially get a similar treatment to Celestial in the sense that you have a grade 2 that essentially help you to superior card Vanguard, and that card also has ability to gain its ability to remove itself from the board while also being able to call itself from drop mid battle phase as well. And then of course another grade 1 that can restand and give you essentially a better draw than the Festival Collection, but unfortunately you still need that Festival Collection because of the fact that Felty Rosa has one very good combo.
That's it?
And that combo requires 5 different units total to actually generate a very good aggro as early as turn 3. The problem with this combo though is the fact that for 1, you need 5 pieces, which is a lot. And for 2, you also require at least 1 Felty Rosa to be installed, which is impossibility. Because unless you're running supports that help you to put it into soul a lot easier, but let's be real guys, you are not gonna escape running Vista engine with this unit, so that should be covered at least. A little bit frustrating though that they decided to reprint Vilista engine as a whole. So is Fairy Rosa better than before? I have to say yes, but is it better enough to actually consistently win at a much higher level? I don't think so. Like in my stream, I can combo it like no tomorrow, but realistically in the tournament, it's a lot harder to get that full-on combo for all 9 games at a best timing possible. So I can't give her more than a minor rank up into B tier, low B tier just to be precise. And before we get to the most important part, which is all the new decks and the upgrades, we have to talk about one more deck, and that is Judge Maiden. And I'm confused why a lot of people were very against the new support. Like, no one from deck to drop is an insanely privileged card anyone can have. Like in her text, it says you can mill anything to trigger the skill. So essentially, you can actually mill regularly speed with this card. You can mill all the cards that trigger in your drop with this card to actually combo better. And this way of support did give us something to do exactly that. And not only that, this card also turned itself into more resource when you call Alba over her and turn it into additional draw as well as a plus 5k to front row if you desire so. If you call this a bad card, you are shit player. I will say this straight up.
That escalated quickly.
Because this card is the very card that many decks that has a drop presence or do use a drop in some ways is begging to get it, and this deck just get it for itself. That is insane. And though I feel like it's a little bit counterintuitive to the deck playstyle itself, the deck did get a card that technically disabled the discard penalty of Saketa on yourself, which is not a bad card, but the fact that they have to make a card specifically for it feels a bit dumb. I rather them going with compensate with more resource would have been better, but unfortunately it is what we get. And I mean, that card is still the ideal target for the Foolish Burial card I was talking about. So no change to Saketa, as the only thing that gets better for the deck is the offensive flow. Now they just need the resource flow to be a little bit better. And finally, we can go into the What? I forgot a deck? Let me check real quick. Oh, you call that support? That's bad comedy, bro. That's another one? Ah, yeah. That card is alright. Okay, so I got a message from my editing self saying I forgot one more deck to be mentioned, and that is Prism. Prism got a triple R that at a glance seems very simple. I mean, ability to just get a booster seems a little weak in the current meta until you realize what it can potentially do, as this card works both on Vert and Labrador. As long as another card is called to Regard Circle, you can stand in it and allow it to bounce one more Prism card if needed to. This makes Labrador able to pretty much remove her entire board if needed to. Meanwhile, in Vert, it does make cards that did not return at the end of turns, like Rose, that require on hit to bounce back at a much more consistent pace. Does the card actually make the deck flow better? Yes, and for both of them. But does it make a difference for the meta as a whole? Not really. Both of this deck has its own problem, where Labrador require you to hit turn 3 to actually get into her bouncing house. Meanwhile, for Vert, this doesn't really fix her issue. So overall, it's a good support that actually support both decks, but I wouldn't call these two decks improved. Anyway, it's time to talk about the new decks and the deck that did get a dressed up version. And I think we can start off with the cheapest Elresa of the set, Race Blaze. I already mentioned this in the video. I don't think Race Blaze is worth building at the time of recording because of the fact that you are relying on Stoicheia so much, but the deck doesn't really have enough offense to really catch up with the deck itself. And as much as the deck do filter quite consistently with Folia own skill and also Stoicheia skill, and also the ease that this deck can get Stoicheia and the order out, but the problem here is that the loop is not complete yet. The moment you ran out of Stoicheia, your deck lose a lot of aggro. There is enough recovery to make the skill work constantly, but there is not enough recovery for the offensive unit that the deck needs to actually keep up with the deck capability. But this deck still milks Stoicheia like no tomorrow and does do a good job at it. So I can't in a good conscience say it's a truly bad deck, but it is definitely kinda alright deck, like low B or mid B or something. I think the deck definitely has a lot of room to improve if you're comparing it to the other new deck. But I'll put it this way, if you want to invest in Race Blaze, at least invest in the LSR now, cause it is quite cheap. And if the deck gets better over time, which it will, the investment will work. For me, I'm good because I prefer the other new right line, Sweet Linker. Not only because it is better, but also I do like the playstyle a lot. As I mentioned in my video, where I like the variant playstyle of Dark Regulars, and Sweetlinker does exactly just that and do a lot better job than the variants initially. The deck has decent filter thanks to the Grade 2 that you can play quite often and very early on, and the deck power scaling gets up very quickly the moment you have one copy of your Vanguard in your soul, and your first on-demand heal will come in handy, especially if your opponent trying to gain the upper hand on you through rushing. But I'm not saying Sweetlinker is perfect. The deck still struggle to kind of get on-demand heal second time onwards due to the total card that you can actually run in your main deck that is not the right deck is exactly 6, which is quite annoying to do so, and only right line is currently the only way to actually build up your soul quickly from deck. And then there is this little element of RNG with Rati skill, which kind of give you a coin flip whether do you want to get more critical and power to the front row, or you get Vanguard power but also triple drive. At the time of recording, this RNG can get annoying, especially if you need to have one or the other. So maybe ability to just quick check top deck or a card that allow you to trigger both at the same time would have been pretty good, though I'm not sure how long it will take for them to give that kind of support to Sweetlinker. And because of all that, I'm putting Sweetlinker into rogue tier. The moment the deck get all the engine in the gear just goes off really hard. Like the fact that all the Sweetlinker card can get their skill off very early on, except for some of them, is really good already. So as long as you can get that early part of the game set up well, the rest of the game is not that tough to actually play around. So yeah, just like any other Dark State-ish playstyle, you have to pray to RNG, which is something that you don't have to pray if you chose to play, in my opinion, a deck that has a lot of cult following, but I'm no longer a fan because she left the 3 attack deck club, and that is Fennel. Credit due to where it's due, I have to say, all the support that surrounds the Fennel that come in this booster are really good. Brand new Trick or Treat, which can be played from drop, another card that works both as a beater and also a searcher, a card that helps you to recover itself from drop, and of course LD. All these elements just make Fennel get into the tank mode very easily and quite consistently as long as you can get all these pieces out. The problem, in my opinion, is the Vanguard. It doesn't do much more than the original does, though in the comment recently did mention that there is a difference between the original and the current version, in a sense that the dress up version of Fennel does keep the power even if you fail to play 3 orders. I will consider that to be a good point, which I completely missed out in my Fennel video, so apologies for that. But I don't think it mattered that much because the first time you're trying to play 3 order should be a success to begin with. Unless you fail to get a persona right for the turn 4, I don't think that is a big issue. What I feel is a little lazy is the restand.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The fact that Fennel is not able to use that restand skill hurts the deck a lot, and not a lot of cards in Fennel deck actually retain its power after attacking, with the exception of the generics like Stoicheia. But everything around her are so good, I can't not increase her ranking from close to top of A- to actually a viable deck. I think that quality of life that improved with her filtering just really make her aggro so much better, but I still feel it would have been better if Fennel herself does something that helps to recycle back the order as well, at least just to make sure that you consistently get that 3 order play every turn. And unfortunately, this is the theme with this year dress up, because the next deck I have to talk about, Shaman, technically does improve the most in terms of the boss unit skill, because her flexibility that gained from her ability to superior call is improved from just being able to call from soul only to be able to call from drop as well is really huge help. And her support is good as well, as now with a cost of counter blast 2, which is not that expensive considering you have a consistent counter charger, guarantees plus 10k to Vanguard. This means that the commitment that you need to unlock the full skill of Shaman is a lot easier, though it doesn't remove the need of committing all the power to Vanguard to actually close the game. But I have to admit, the deck power gaining is a lot easier now and a lot more deadlier now as all the pieces start to gel together. But it is still a deck that requires a lot of commitment in terms of power, and if you cannot kill your opponent by that turn, just like Blankmeyer, you'll struggle. And that's why I actually will bring Shaman up actually from alright tier into a rogue tier, because finally all the cards are kind of like just gelled together well, but I don't think it is as consistent as deck like Fennel, where extra crit is a commonplace there. Just like this next entry and the last of the dress up update this booster, Sienna. And yeah, it is definitely going into the somewhat of the weird direction. I'm not saying superior call a card from a top 5 that also allow you to search for blitz order is bad, but I feel like Sienna suffers a similar problem with a lot of the defensive playstyle deck, in a sense that even though the initial playstyle kind of lean heavy toward defense, Bushiroad just tip the scale toward offense. Like, you look at all the decks that used to have a somewhat of the defensive playstyle, all of them get all the support that lean heavily into the offensive playstyle. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but the problem is that if you can't even get your defense to a comfortable spot, why the fuck you want to focus on other thing that is not ready for the deck yet? Though I gotta admit, a lot of them do a good job, which does include Sienna, as she also gets essentially a Wapra and also an Immigra. But overall, I'm not sure if that is what Sienna is needed. I think what she needs more, similar to Fennel, is a consistency in her base gimmick, and that is the fact that she needs a little bit better defensive capability to essentially defend or make use of that control skill of hers a lot more consistently. And this is just maybe a small fix I would have put onto the Gorgon gift, which is Blaster Blade Vanguard. I mean, with that alone, that would improve the defensive capability of Sienna by a whole lot. So because of that, as much as I do like the improvement of Sienna, it doesn't push the deck to the next level, even if now she is a more consistent 5 attack deck. And last but not least, this is not a dress up, I completely forgot to talk about this deck earlier, is Auk, the brand new encounter for the Bermuda. And I don't think I have to speak too much. Auk is essentially a word but better, like way better, thanks to additional attack that she can pull off, ability to return her own personal right copy back to hand, and most importantly, her power doesn't require your opponent grade to be higher to get a boost off. You just need to take a lot of damage, and because of that element alone, I will put her in high B tier. The problem with Auk kind of boils down to the similar problem that a lot of brush-based decks do have, and that is the fact that her number is not good until a very specific part of the turn, which is really awkward. Like, her power only get better when she rewrite, which doesn't sound bad at a glance, but you imagine you already have to use 2 attack earlier already. Gaining full power afterwards feels a little bit weird, but not in a bad way. I mean, she is still a very solid start to a brand new encounter deck, so I think it is not bad. And like I said in the video as well, she is easily one of the best Mermaid Engine user at the time of recording. And there is one last group I have to talk about because it was a last minute review, and that is all the brand new forms for the Koro deck, with one particular deck might have shaken my tier list completely. But let's start off with the old man first, the Grandpa deck. Grandpa has been known to essentially play like a meme deck, and the brand new support that was given to Grandpa, Double Impact Grandpa, do exactly just that. As when it is bound, it gave you 2 abilities, one of which is the same bound ability that the main Grandpa Vanguard given, and the other essentially bind another card from your deck with different name from what you have already bind. Essentially just make sure that you have ability to bound more than once per turn. But here is the problem that I have with this card. The cost that occur in exchange for the second bound skill is that you have to lose that turn. So if you cannot kill your opponent on that turn itself, you will die. Which sounds bad at a glance, but considering what Grandpa has, in which one of the cards literally give your Vanguard ability to hit the opponent Vanguard to guarantee the win, I'm not too surprised. But just like any excavation kind of skill that Vanguard has for most part, it's an RNG still. And that RNG factor makes the variability a lot more harder to actually play. And because of that, I have to rate the Koro Grandpa deck to where he was previously, and that is right in the middle of alright deck. It's a meme that technically works, but other than that, it's hard to make Grandpa deck works unless they have a way to recycle some of the bound card back into the deck, allowing you to refresh the skill in general, would have made the deck a whole lot better. And then we have a deck that I have no excuse to not put it in A+ tier, the Koro Time Rewinder. This deck has always been one of the more better dark state deck I can think of, due to its ability to not only consistent filter every single time per turn, and can actually explode out of nowhere if your opponent are not prepared, thanks to its ability to retry units on the field, essentially giving you additional attack, and the fact that that retry attack will continuously go up as the time goes by due to the fact that it is tied to a set order. The new form of Chrono though does help the deck a lot as well, where not only it allows you to play retry eye from your drop, allowing you to discard it as a cost of PG or right deck or anything that needed to. It also helped you to essentially superior call one Fate Time Rewinder before you actually swap back to the original chrono, allowing you to essentially get more power and also still maintain that benefit of getting additional surge as well. But not only that, you also got a brand new form of Shirai, which not only gets its own power but also its own crit, allowing you to essentially let the original Shirai use its own ability to gain crit first before swapping it into this new form of Shirai, which require a retry to essentially whack another attack with critical. There is a reason why this deck managed to become a number 2 deck in the finals of Japan Deluxe 2025, and that is why I'm putting it into A+ tier. The deck just got a whole lot more consistent, even though the deck still struggle a little bit here and there due to the fact that it still requires limit break and personal right to actually triggers all the skill. And the same momentum can be seen with an additional form of Black as well, who trade his ability for giving additional power in his grade 3 version with ability to superior call back to unit from drop, which is actually quite powerful. And don't forget, if you're going second, you can immediately jump into grade 4, ensuring that the grade 4 rush that Black is well known for is maintained consistently. But other than that, there's not much I can really say about Black. It has always been a rogue deck, and I still think this new form does still maintain it into the rogue tier, but maybe just a little bit higher as it is a little bit more consistent. But at the same time, his weakness is still all there. If you cannot finish your opponent as early as turn 3 the moment you right into your first grade 4, it's still a little bit of a struggle. Though the fact that Black can be activated from rear guard as well does help the deck quite a bit. And on the similar trend, we have deck Cocoon.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
With the brand new version of the grade 3 from the original, which I can safely say is pretty much a replacement, purely because of the fact that it is essentially the original version of it, but much better because of its ability to not only giving additional power to your entire front row and also protect them, but also ability to make all of your grade 3 deck Cocoon gaining additional 20k when placed on guard circle. So yes, essentially this goes the Lufa route, which also means that they do force you to run some of the other Dekakun you can have. But here's the thing, this card is also treated as the original Dekakun, so that means you can potentially have a total of 7 different Dekakun in your deck, allowing for consistent personal right, and it will still works. Of course, you do want to personal right into the new form because, you know, much bigger power and everything, but I can safely say out of the 5 bosses, he does have the smallest and in a way most boring update out of all, but it is effective enough, and that's why I am willing to push Dekakun just a tiny bit into a bottom A manas tier. His original version has always been very good beginner deck to actually play, but with this brand new version, it just expand on that simplicity a little bit more, while also still allowing the deck to have a bit more sustain and a bit more power. And that's why I feel it feels right that he is the one that get promoted instead, unlike Black, who just make things a bit more consistent only. And then last, for real this time, we have a new form of the Baby, which is Ultimate Baby, or you know what this art tell you. Essentially, it does give you one additional ability to allow you to search for Takahashi card, which is a card that help you to spirit call back the grade 0 Baby. And other than that, that's it. What the fuck, bro? Yes, you can go into more overdress, I mean explosive growth, a little bit more consistently, but the problem with Baby hasn't been about getting back grade 0 to begin with. I mean, it is a part of the problem, but the way they decided to fix it is really dumb, because this stupid card only target one card that you probably have to run more copy now, making it even harder to slot in all the explosive growth card. And that's why I'm not changing his position. He is already in my eye a bad deck, which is D tier, but this is not a way to fix it, man. I mean, if the card does have to fetch explosive growth or more Baby, that would have been great, but they have to go and mill it, which is the worst decision I can think of. What a shame, because this is really this time the last entry I'm gonna be cover for this tier list. But what do you guys think? This is the last tier list video of this year, and I apologize I cannot push out the DZBT12 earlier since it came out quite late in the month. But regardless, thank you guys. I don't know when this video will come out, but now that we managed to hit 2k sub and I think it's going up, I want to spend time a little bit to thank every single person who actually enjoy my videos. I appreciate whether you guys comment or not. Tell me in the person that you guys like video or not. I appreciate every single drop along the way, and of course all the debates and comments and suggestions that you guys have been telling me to do here and there. Thank you so much, even if some of them I did not manage to follow. And I hope 2026 is a good year for all of you guys, for myself, for the Vanguard as a game. I mean, it seems like we are heading into interesting direction. So have a good end of the year. Like I said, I'm not sure when I can finish this video, and see you guys in 2026, I guess. じゃあね。